Okay. Sue, do you want me to take it or?
If you're prepared, sure. If you
Okay.
would rather I did, I will.
Okay. I'm prepared, but I just can't see who's there. So when it comes for roll call, I'll have you do that. So the first order we have to do is we have to close our meeting from April 24th to 2025. I guess we're officially closing that meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved.
Okay. And Sue, can you do the roll call?
Sure. Suzanne Keating.
Here.
It's an I.
Oh, aye. Sorry.
Sarah Wright.
Aye.
Amanda Wright.
Aye.
Veronica Bolchek.
Aye.
And Sue Minton is I.
Okay. Alrighty. So now we are going to officially start our meeting of Thursday, May 22nd, and it is 4:03 p.m. And the first of contract review, the Council for Human Services, and this is Veronica Bolchek, the chair, and I'm being assisted by Sue Minton, the co-chair. First thing we need to do is establish quorum. So Sue, can you take the vote?
Sure.
One moment. We're having Tara join as well. So when you do the roll call, you can include her. And then Veronica, we have you joining a second time, which I'm assuming is your laptop.
Yes. Yes.
Now she's here.
Okay.
Oh, and Kelly as well.
Perfect.
Alrighty.
So Sue Minton is present. Suzanne Keating.
Present.
Sarah Wright.
Present.
Amanda Wright.
Present.
Veronica Bolchek.
Present.
Kelly Steffen.
Present.
Okay.
Thank you. Waiting for Tara to establish audio.
Okay. All right. I am leaving my phone.
Perfect. Tara, we're taking roll call. Are you present?
Sorry,
Oh.
you asked me. Yes.
Yes, present.
Sorry. Yes,
Perfect.
present.
Okay. Now you can hear
Veronica.
me. I'm sorry.
Veronica
We also
is-
have two members from the town with us. I see Jericho
In attendance?
and I see Alexandria.
Here.
Okay. Do we have audio on me? Can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm hearing you. Okay. Sorry about the technical difficulties here, but I think we're up and running now. All righty. So we've established quorum. Can I have an acceptance of the agenda? A motion?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
And second by Sue. So by roll call, Sarah,
Aye.
Amanda,
Aye.
Sue,
I.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
and Tara.
Aye.
And since we did the roll call, Kelly and Tara have joined us, and so we do have a good quorum, so thank you. Approval of the minutes. We have minutes from the April 24th meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Tara and
Second.
second by Sue. Alrighty, a vote. So we have Sarah,
Aye.
Amanda,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Sue,
I.
Kelly,
Aye.
and Tara.
Aye.
All right. And once again, thank you, Alexandria, for getting minutes to us in a timely fashion, and well done. So thank you. All righty. Next, we have we have two French bulldogs that just joined the meeting also. So they're panting because they were running outside. Sorry about that. They're not voting. Alrighty, so public comment. I don't see anyone here on public comment. So, with none.
Veronica, we don't have video on you. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's your I don't know if that's your intention.
Oh, now you do. Okay.
Okay.
All right. There we go. Alrighty, so no public comments. So the next we're going on to just announcement of the fiscal year 26 Human Services and Substance Misuse Grants at the town meeting, which took place, I guess it's 3 weeks ago now. Seems like forever. That motion, the warrant did get voted, so all of the grants have been approved, and as of July 1st, all the awardees, by now, the contracts are being drawn up, and they will have contracts in hand, and we will be funding some very good, robust programs for the next year. If anyone was at the town meeting, for the first time in my experience, the warrant was called, and it was, of course, I held my breath because you never know what is going to happen, but the person who called it basically could not understand why we were funding a Martha's Vineyard program. So Martha's Vineyard Community Services, of course, provides supplemental special education or programming and therapies and support for families and individuals with special needs. Just happens to have the name Martha's Vineyard. But that was a question, so we had to explain that. And the other thing is there's a new program, a new organization called Sharing Kindness, and they were not sure what that meant. Now, explanation, was given, and that was the end of the discussion. And I guess my question just with this, and it's for Jericho, I know the warrant would be as thick as the New York City telephone pages if it had all the details, but the titles for the warrants, I don't know if moving forward for the organizations, if we could put maybe a better explanation or a subtext or something, or maybe this is just overreacting to the current environment. So, and I see Sue, you're shaking your head, but I have a feeling that the current environment is going to be with us for a while. So we may want to consider something like that for the future. But thank goodness the warrant was passed and the programs are going to be funded and people are going to be served. So thank you. Thank you.
We did have some supplementary information past what was in the warrant itself, which would have been very easy to notice had someone read it before the town meeting itself. But I am going to look to have maybe expand the table that is in there so that it's a little maybe there's a line describing the program. We could potentially reproduce what we have from the report. That was just the standard template for the years previous that finance reached out with. And when we come to next town meeting, I'll put some additional, I might just reproduce the table we have in the report so that it has the organization, the funding level, and then the purpose of the funding.
Okay. Any comments from anyone? Okay. I know that on other warrants and other departments, I think that the town and departments did an excellent job this year in putting out videos. There were information online. Of course, you had to seek it out, but the issue is maybe we can consider something like that in the future. But the problem is we don't really want to, it's sort of like after, even notifying our programs, we don't want to do that because if it's not passed in a warrant, we don't want to have people be excited that they're getting it and all of a sudden it's voted out. But I think there's going to be some discussion as we go forward for next year. But it certainly did cause a little bit of a stir for a few minutes. Jericho?
We do have a more formal protocol for due dates this coming year. Our report and recommendations are hopefully expected to be in before the end of December, which will let us do a little more communication to the grantees, the potential grantees, and that'll make it so that we can let people know that there is that they have been recommended for an award or not, pending the ratification of that article at town meeting. So
Mhm.
there's a component to that we can work out a little bit more, along with more general education about what contract review grants do, who they go to, and how some of the stuff we've discussed with Joanne in the contract review committee.
Right. And it is human services grants, not contract review, human services
Yes.
grants. Okay. All right. If no more discussion on that, the next item on the agenda is discussion on formal funding request for 27 fiscal year 27. And we had a little bit of this discussion last month, but since that time, the contract review committee also met, and we have the procedure in order now, and within the next week, I'll be working with Jericho, putting together a formal letter that will go to town administration, to Libby Gibson, and ultimately it goes to the select board. And that letter will be, at this point, we have a contract review committee next Friday, so that will be presented to the committee and modified, I'm sure, and be ready to send to the town. Jericho?
And I can do a brief update. I spoke with Libby. She was passing through the office today, and I had a brief chat with her about this particular question. And I let her know that we were looking to do a formal request letter for level funding, plus working out a process for adjusting through cost of living. And she was supportive of that, or cost of living / inflation, like a purchasing parity kind of modifier for the amount. And she was quite supportive of that. So once we have a chance to get that letter put together, we'll get it to her, and then we'll hopefully get nice solid clarity on how things are going to look before we start the grant process at all this year, which will be very helpful.
Okay. I'm just looking at our agenda. If no, we'll continue on with the agenda, but so that's pretty well. So we know that we've been at 650,000 for human services and 175 in the substance misuse or the former cannabis funds. And we know that that is not going to, that line, excuse me, that line of funding is not going to exist, but we were told that there would be some funding in that area. So what we're going to be requesting is level funding, and I believe it'll be 650 plus 175 as our level funding, plus whatever increases we can get on that. So even though the cannabis money is not going to come through the channel that it had, we're asking that there will be that available. So that's under development right now. If no other discussion on that, brings me to the opiate grant applications. So the closing date on the opiate grants was yesterday, the 21st. It was open for a month. And I'm going to ask Jericho to give us an update on that, since I just had a brief message from him earlier, so he can give us an update of what we'll be looking at.
So we ran the opioid grant solicitation process for a month. We closed yesterday at end of day with 5 applications, 2 for treatment and 3 from prevention. We had applications from Fairwinds, Addiction Solutions, MAST / NAMI, and from the Artists Association. All of the applications were complete. I'm waiting on some format, like a digital, I got a PDF version, and I'm hoping to get a Word version of one of the particular applications, just because it makes it easier to put together the packet. And then I should have those ready to go. If I get, it's either within minutes of getting the updated file or tomorrow. And I'll be sending those out to the contract review committee. We will likely do a brief kind of packet and then deliberation process. I do think we're going to need to do interviews for this one, since a couple of the applications have very interesting programs that I think would benefit from additional clarity from the agencies submitting. But they all look to be well formatted and interesting programming. I'm curious to see what everyone else's response to them is.
Right. And contract review has a meeting next Friday on the 30th, and probably if we can organize that, we'll do reviews, interviews the following week, because we want to have the decisions and everything before the end of the fiscal year, because this money will become available on July 1st. So it's a very, very tight time frame. So,
Madam Chair?
yes.
And then the interesting and nice thing about this is that this is not allocated money. This was settlement money, which means that as soon as the application process is completed, it will be available for use. So people could be starting programming as soon as we give, as soon as we have the deliberation and recommendations done, plus July 1st. So it'll be very good. I'm hopeful we'll get a quick and effective deliberation process. And then it'll be nice to see that go out, so we can see, hopefully, that we'll have another tranche of this money, and we can modify the process to see what works over the course of the first 3 quarters.
Okay. All righty. This is, pretty exciting to have this extra $55,000 for programming, because I'm sort of going to jump ahead to, if with everyone's permission, I'd like to talk about the needs assessment next, because that would be a better order for this, because we know that our needs are great. And so I'm going to turn, I was not on the selection committee, and I believe it is Suzanne and Tara. So if one of you would like to give us an update, and then Jericho, if you can supply anything more. So
I think I could give a pretty quick update,
Mhm.
Suzanne, so if you're okay with that.
Yep, I might add something.
Yeah, so we had a total of, how many was it? It was
11? 10.
Well,
10.
10. It was 10 RFPs were submitted. They were extremely lengthy and detailed in some cases. Some of them were kind of cookie cutter types of things. We each went through a review and assessment for each of the 10. And then we had a group 4-hour-long call to discuss each of the applications. We went through them assessment criteria by criteria. It was a very, very good conversation. I think it was, incredibly thorough. We were then asked to rank our top 3. We were not in agreement in terms of, we were actually in agreement of the top 3, but not in the order of those 3.
Right.
So what we had proposed was that we go back to those 3, because we have a right to do so, to ask additional questions. So we said the length of no more than 5 to 7 questions. So we proposed those questions. According to the guidelines, we actually have to go to the top 4. So it brought us to 4 organizations that we have now resubmitted these questions to. We are going to give each of those organizations basically a 20-minute time slot to do a presentation based really on those specific questions, and then we'll have Q&A with them. The date is set for June 3rd.
Mhm.
And, I think I think, Suzanne and I have a lot of similarities in the way that we thought about things, that I think at least two of the organizations were, Massachusetts based, which we thought, while there were one of the organizations that, and Jericho was very enthusiastic about, was a larger firm, not based, in Massachusetts, but had a lot of qualitative and quantitative, measures and stats and data that he really, really, really liked. So we have kind of narrowed it down to this, and we will have another very healthy, really good discussion. It actually, by ranking, coming down to the four, I actually went back into each of those organizations. I also suggested to members of the review that they actually go out and look at the individuals' LinkedIn pages that were being proposed as being members of the team, because that was actually very eye-opening to me in terms of background and experience, and then the company's website. And so, I think we're gonna have a great discussion on the 3rd.
Okay.
Is there
Can
anything?
Can I ask who was on the committee completely, so we can all know?
It was myself, Suzanne, Tara, then Lexi was actually on it as well. And then we had, that was Timothy McGrath from finance. So
Yeah.
that was a 5-man group
Okay,
or 5-person group.
thank you. Is that DEI that you just used? I'm sorry.
No, more accurate.
More accurate. Sorry. I can't help it.
I don't want to get us targeted. So yeah.
I'm sorry. But it sounds fabulous. And when I'm sitting here, what I'm really pleased with is that this is like a subcommittee from here, and diving in and doing work. So I appreciate your time and effort in volunteering for this, because I do see this as we're going down the road, this is going to be more of how we'll be functioning. So it's wonderful. Can you give an idea of when the selection, and then when the job can actually begin? Jericho, you want to take it? All right.
So all of the timelines had basically, we can make a decision more or less immediately after that meeting. We might want to sort of sit and ruminate on it briefly, but I think that by the end of those presentations, we'll have a very good idea of which organization we want to pick. I am shockingly very happy. I believe that any of the top 3 candidates will fulfill that job quite well. It was difficult to make a decision between them, and I think this will determine it. All of the timelines for the programming had the kickoff and initial process, like initial parameter setting, as the first month or 2. That's a lot of the remote work. It's a lot of the historical analysis, a lot of the benchmarking against other communities. So that process should be underway with some feedback before we release the RFP for for this round of human services and substance misuse grants. So we'll have some additional information and some analysis that'll help us inform how we write the RFP this year. They varied on survey instrument deployment between and focus group timing between like 3 to 5 months into the process, which if we start from if we're starting in early June, that would mean that the earliest we can reasonably expect the survey instrument to be finalized, never mind released, is probably October-ish, which would be most likely when we have already released the RFP, and hopefully when we are collecting and beginning deliberations on it. So I do not think we're going to have new primary research to help inform the grant process for FY27. I do think we will have additional benchmarking and historical analysis that may let us partition that money a little bit better, because we are not stuck to having 650K undifferentiated in the human services category. We can constrain that a tiny bit if there's historical or benchmarking evidence that supports such a decision.
Can you explain what you just said as far as basically if we are granted 800 and $900,000, it doesn't have to be a set amount for, the town is not going to tell us a set amount has to be for substance misuse?
Substance misuse funds come from a strategic stabilization fund, which does need to go specifically to substance misuse. So that 175 goes to substance misuse. Assuming that we are level funded for that, we won't be able to use the 175K for anything other than substance misuse.
Okay, all
If
right.
we want to set parameters on the 650K, say 200,000 for this use case, 100,000 for this use case, we could have separate application processes for that. Or we could determine that historically we've had X number of grants in this amount range. So we could set standardized award amounts if we want to do that. We'll have some additional information. It just won't be modern, it won't be up-to-date locally collected needs assessment data.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
Yes. Any questions on that beside mine? All right. Okay. Yes.
Sorry,
Sarah?
Brian.
Yeah.
I'm just saying out loud, just making a note that if it's October 1st, Jericho, like you just said, isn't that when the federal fiscal year starts, October 1st?
I believe
And-
so.
Right, so, I feel like needs could only be larger then, will only be larger then.
That is actually an excellent point, especially considering the announced and I believe now ratified budget.
Mhm.
Right.
Adopted budget. I think the danger is if we start too early, we're not capturing the local needs, we're capturing transient needs. However, we need to start early enough that we don't completely miss the seasonal needs because those are an important part of Nantucket. So I think October, when there's going to be all of the things that have been pending up until now will be announced and their implications can be at least measured, it will be a better time to collect data. We'll have a better picture of what and how federal and state changes will impact local needs. That's an excellent point. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
Actually, just to add to that, I think Jericho, we should consider an additional question to the organizations related to the budgetary cycle and the newly adopted budget. So
I
that
know-
might be something that we should actually add to our discussion.
I know that we cannot add it to the written questions, but we can certainly work it into the Q&A.
Q&A, yeah, we should definitely do that.
Okay. That actually brings up something more on that the Contract Review Committee at their last meeting had a discussion on. And it's basically emergency funds. And I may not be explaining this exactly at the moment because I don't have those notes right in front of me. But it's become obvious in the last period of time, and I'm going to say within the last 2 months, that cutbacks in federal funds are affecting organizations all over and are affecting organizations on the island. And specifically, there was communication from Meals on Wheels, because not just for Nantucket, but it's the Cape, and it's an organization that covers the Cape and the islands that does Meals on Wheels, and they are functioning in a severe deficit right now because they have not received the monies that they, I'm not going to say promised, but what they were depending on, but yes, promised. So the question came up is, do we have an emergency fund? And unfortunately, the town is not very nimble in, you could see what we have to go through just to get funding for next year that we're a bureaucracy. So I do know that there are some other organizations on the island that may be able to be more nimble. And the Community Foundation, if everyone saw, they did double the money that they are giving in their grants, and they can function more nimbly than a government, the town can. Jericho?
I did have a brief discussion with Brian about this as we were discussing a couple of other, like the needs assessment and then the budgetary or the CRC request for next year. I also know that I believe the Tower Foundation adjusted their funding structure in order to make a certain amount of their normal grant cycle be emergency funds. Emergency here being defined as a grant, an agreed upon grant that was either clawed back or not distributed. His major concerns were the ones that we had raised while we were discussing this initially, which is that we have to have a very good definition of emergency, an objective definition of emergency, one that is not contingent upon the nature of the financial interaction, not the need, because that will otherwise we get into potential legal and procurement issues. He was like, actually, yeah, we need to start looking into that. I think there was also additional information that came out about how federal cuts are going to be impacting other areas of the town moving forward. I know that there were concerns around transportation grants, airport grants, and a few other sort of backbone grants that you wouldn't expect to be federal grant money that would be targeted. I think there's a full analysis of that coming out in the next couple of days. I'm hoping next couple of days, but it's a concern. And with the announcement of this budget, we will have we'll be able to start seeing what those impacts are instead of having no clue what's going on.
Yeah. Unusual times we're living in. But it's all good that we can have these conversations and hopefully have a positive effect in some small way. Let me see. Anything more in this area? So one last question on the needs assessment that I have. At what point would we as a group be able to have conversation with the organization and I guess I'm hoping that there would be a time before they hit the ground running that maybe we would be able to, as a group, invite them to explain the process and that we could have some feedback, et cetera, comments. So at what point would that be?
That would be
Well, it
early
depended
on.
on the different groups that were who's picked. Some wanted to start earlier with key
Yeah,
people, and some wanted to start maybe a month or two in, and but they plan on meeting with CHS and other key people.
yeah.
So it'd be pretty soon
Okay.
after the project gets off the ground.
I think
And I think we all thought that's sort of critical to the process.
Yeah.
So,
from the general gist of the different applications, and sorry, I'm trying to dance around because I can't get too specific on anything until a decision's made.
Right.
On most of the timelines presented, there was, sign off, kick off with the grant, like the contractor with the town, and then either they do a historical survey of existing data and benchmarking, then come to us, then develop the survey, implement, and do primary research, or they talk to us, do historical research, then do the survey instrument. So we're either stage, it's well ahead of any major heavy lifts, and the will have a chance to input, to have input on the process as a whole. And then all of them have repeated check-ins with like all the ones in the top that we're going back to have like a lot of specific check-ins with local people. There combination of survey, focus group, and then, you know, just random interviews. Some of the questions we have are around linguistic agility, and then sort of making sure that we have representative sample sizes.
Mhm.
All right. And I guess it brings up that I know historically, a few years ago when we were sort of at CHS sort of fumbling about of like, what is our purpose or whatever, when it came time for summer, we actually took a break. But I have a feeling that with this pending, we will have a meeting in June, July, August, just to keep things moving along and to, I hope, I know that summer for some people, things ramp up. It doesn't matter, you know, for some people that life continues, but, you know, keep your calendar open for our meetings during the summer months. So thank you. Sarah?
On that point, Veronica, I almost asked this last time and we don't have anyone from the public on this right now, I don't think.
No.
I just wonder, especially now, I wonder the following. Do you think it would be helpful to, as a group, to write something like to send to the Inky or the Current or both, whatever, that collectively just sort of raises greater situational awareness about, you know, the needs, sort of what we're doing, broadly speaking, but even just what you said now, I mean, I do think a lot of things on Nantucket do break during the season. Just telling the public that the situation, the human service situation is really quite dire and probably getting worse. And so we are not taking a break in our meeting cadence this summer. Like, and also we have an opening, anyone who wants to join, like, you know, I just feel like I would be happy to draft that, send it out to you and the whole group and whatever. But I think that, you know, we don't often have public or ever have the public here. I don't know who watches it later on. And I really think we're doing really mission critical work that has big impact. And, you know, someone told me today they, you know, have seen lines at the food pantry now and things that just, you know, they're not used to seeing.
Right.
So,
And actually that brings up something that happened this past month. You know, as I was asked to write something in support, and it actually is that you mentioned the food pantry. The food pantry desperately needs a new home, and there are things happening and churning and in the background, but the awareness of that needs to be out there. And I was at sort of like last minute was asked to write something, and of course, it had to be due within 12 hours. And it wasn't, I could not write it as the view of the Council for Human Services or the Contract Review Committee, because anything that is written that would have the organization on it has to be voted on by this body or the Contract Review as a body. So it was written as me as a private individual. And I did mention in there that of my roles, but it had to be as a private individual. And it was not anything that was published in a paper or whatever, but I needed to do that. So I think, Sarah, that's an excellent thing, suggestion. And we can, you know, maybe make assignments for penning different letters, and then we will review it as a group and then we can start a PR campaign to make us more known and make out not just let me say that differently. It's not making us more known, but making the issues more known,
Mhm.
supported by us as the group that should be looking at all of this.
Right. Right.
Good point. Thank you. Jericho, I see your hand up.
Two things. First is just a gentle time reminder for Amanda. I know she had another appointment.
Yes.
And then the second is that also dovetails quite nicely with our plans from the Contract Review Committee to have an award ceremony and possibly do more publicization around specifically what we're doing and what we're awarded. We're also expanding social media footprint for this. The Health and Human Services Department now has a couple of different social media elements. And we're going to be doing some more publicization and soliciting more content about what services are provided from the agencies, and then sort of expanding that out and making it so people aren't surprised that Martha's Vineyard Community Service is providing services on the island, and that they are indeed putting services on the island and what we do.
Okay. Suzanne, you're muted. Okay.
Okay. I have a suggestion that possibly you might want to consider the Sustainable Nantucket at the farmers market. They hold a space for tables for nonprofits. And once we get some kind of letter or PR thing or something, we could have a couple of people sitting at the table on a Saturday and answering questions, letting people know what we do.
That's a good suggestion. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people go through there, and
Lots.
not just tourists, but island people come through. And
Yeah.
Honestly, we want the tourists to know also, because maybe we can organize this for our not-for-profits to have material there as a way of fundraising also.
Yeah. And
QR code, make people aware that we do have counseling service, addiction services, food, housing, on and on and on. So it's
well, some of those agencies have already had tables over the past 8 years that I've been involved with the farmers market, and different. I've seen different groups there. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but Safe Place has been there, and others. And I was thinking more along the lines of getting the information out that there is, people are pulling together things. I don't know how, it's sort of in the back of my mind dovetails with the needs assessment, thing down the road.
Well, we need to be publicizing that needs assessment so that we can get as many surveys
As possible. Yeah.
and be getting it into places it doesn't normally get to, which I think is where we really need to put some time and effort in. I know that's going to be revising invoicing and reporting for the CRC grants, and then kind of trying to expand the behavioral health component of the public health nursing program is sort of where we're heading. Or where are my kind of big ticket items for the next fiscal year. So making sure that we support the public awareness of the value that we're helping to add to the island, and the people that we're helping being kind of a lot broader than is generally thought of on the island. That can only benefit the people of Nantucket and the agencies that help them.
Right. So these actually are two very good ways of just getting the word out, part of public relations, and with a letter writing campaign, and then also visibility at a place like the Sustainable Market. So the Sustainable Market, I believe, begins this weekend is the first, correct? And it will run through probably October.
It starts on this Saturday and it runs through Indigenous Peoples Day weekend in October.
Okay. So, what I believe Kat, is Kat the person?
Yeah, Kat Stackbeck is the person who you'd talk to about a table.
Right. She's actually my physical therapist. So,
Okay.
I can reach out to her and see, what availability there is. But I do know that they do have X amount of space for, purposes like this. So if
Yeah.
we can nab that for X amount of days, if not every week, and then maybe we can have um, sharing it, a sign up amongst us, availability, and maybe even inviting some of our grant awardees to participate with us. So, all
I
right.
know she brought it up we had our meeting last night at first start of the season, and she brought up that if anybody wanted to have a table for a nonprofit, to get a hold of her, because I don't know how often we'd be able to have a table, because there's quite a few people that
Yeah.
are interested.
I know the difficulty is there's always more people that want to be there because it is a very successful gathering. So we'll see what we can get, dibs on a table for certain days.
Or even asked to share if it is perhaps like if we can, if there is a schedule, Suzanne, that you get of who has those tables, and if it is somebody who's received a grant, we could ask if we could share the table with them.
I'm not sure she has a schedule yet.
Yeah, I'm sure,
Yeah.
not yet, yeah.
Alrighty. Just backing up, the discussion of the CHS, CRC, developing and how things are moving along there. I don't know exactly when we will get together, but we are going to have that meeting. And I have not heard if there is actually a special town meeting set for the fall.
It was explained to me as it is not a given as yet.
Okay. So if there's anything that has to be brought to a vote, it would have to wait for annual town meeting or special town meeting. But I took the opportunity to reread the full report, and I believe everyone got the full report from Ref Tallis. Did everyone get more than just the bullet points that we had when we met with them? But did everyone get a copy of the full report? It's about 35, 40 pages.
I have to
I'll-
double check, Veronica,
I
honestly.
think we should resend we can resend with
Yeah.
ours.
Okay, Alexandria, if you could please do that. Appreciate that because it really, there's a lot of information in there. And so I think, we need to all spend some time looking at it and pulling out some points as we move on. So Alexandria, if you could resend that out to everyone, that would be very much appreciated.
Will do.
I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about, I know
Right.
that the deadline for submitting for open meetings.
I have a
open-
member of the public joining, Charles Wentworth.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty. So I'm sorry, I just lost that thought. Oh, we have an open seat on here, and there was one applicant. I looked at last night's town meeting, and if you look at the agenda, so we did have one application for the open seat we have on CHS, and hopefully that gets appointed. So for July 1st, we'll have a new member coming in. So there was one applicant. I know that I had spoken to a few people, and I know Suzanne, you had also sent on. So we do have one applicant. So hopefully with that one applicant, we will wind up with a full board of 9. Unfortunately, there was also a CRC at large position opened, and I was raking the coals trying to find, and I thought that we had 2 people and they were not on the agenda last night, so whether they missed the deadline of Friday, but I think what's gonna have to happen once July 1st comes and the current positions are filled, they're gonna have to open again. So, you know, I know with one of the hesitation that people had was with the meeting time. And I know that everyone here has really adjusted their schedules that 4 o'clock on the fourth Thursday is kept open. But, as I spoke with people, if they really were interested and if this was a time that could not meet, that we could come back together and see if we could come up with a consensus. But at this point, those people did not apply. So we'll have to take it from here. But it does work best, I think, when we have a set time, a set day, and people's work schedules could be worked around that. So hopefully we'll have a full July 1st and we'll move on from there. Jericho, do you want to take your director's report?
In all honesty, I think you've gotten most of the human services updates I've had for the last chunk of time. Very briefly, like 30 to 45 seconds, continuing to expand some tick-borne illness work, doing some work to draft the vaccination plans for next fall, and then looking into some other grant sources to facilitate expanding some services that we may be going away due to the current grant area. Past that, you've heard quite a bit of what I've been up to for the last month, and most of the rest of the stuff is a little deeper in the weeds than this.
Okay. And I do want to thank you. I know that you also did a presentation at the Board of Health, that Human Services is under the umbrella of the Health Department. And so thank you for attending that meeting and, sharing the work that we all do with them and the public. So once again, it's making just everything better well known is important. I'm going to jump if anyone has anything that they'd like to report or discuss with projects that they're working on or things that they know in the field. Sarah, I look at you because I see that there was an invitation that went out for the transportation group. You talked about that last month, so it's nice to see that's continuing.
Thank
Anything
you.
report on that?
Not necessarily, no. We'll say more about it next week. I think we're just I think the group is cohering around a common understanding that need seems to be increasing. And of course, that's always the case, I think, just with the higher volume of people on island during the summer. But I think that our biggest challenges remain, people who have Mass Health Limited or Children's Security Medical Plan, the Mass Health flavors, if you will, that don't include a transportation piece, some of the undocumented people who still need to get places and just really lack those resources. So the group is expanding now. This is the first month I've invited the Cape Air and the Gull Air and the Sea Streak. So more people and yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right. You just mentioned undocumented. Of course, we are all seeing things on a state and national level of what's happening there. Being in the car over the last couple of days, I've been listening a lot to things that are happening here in Georgia and mostly out of University of Georgia and undocumented students and how they're organizing and just it's mind blowing. But I know that we as an island, we think that we're pretty isolated, but I don't think that, you know, the long reach, you know, will come to us also. So need to keep our eyes and ears open and how we can best support the community. So,
Can I say one other point to that or add one other thing, Veronica? So on that very issue, something that I hadn't really thought about, but just is starting to seem to make itself a little more obvious anyway. Some of the transportation grants, the funds that have applications here, I just became aware this week that there are people now who don't want to have to put down their address because of the fears around deportation and ICE and all of that. So that's making the transportation situation, I think, more complicated because the people who administer the funds are trying to verify and follow their own criteria. And if we can't get all the pieces of the info, then we get a little stuck. It's anecdotal right now, but it supports what you're saying.
yeah, definitely. Alrighty. New business. Any new business? All right. Alexandria, if I can ask, I think I mentioned this last month. If with everyone's permission, I would like a list of emails, phone numbers, to be shared with the entire committee. And I think, you know, you may need our permission to publish that. So if I can ask for a motion, I think that would be the appropriate. Jericho?
Just as a heads up, given the previous conversation, the topic of the previous conversation, emails are a matter of public record. Cell phone information, if it is communicated through the town's email system, is also a matter of public record, just as a heads up to everyone. I don't believe we'd need a motion, and it would be entirely voluntary. We could probably have Alexandria send an email out, and we could exchange that contact information in a way that is ideal for everybody involved.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
What
you
is
know,
it you want the information for? I'm sorry.
Well, just
To be
if
shared among this group?
just among us, but you know
Okay.
how we can
Yeah.
reach out. You know, right now I have everyone's email. I have some phone numbers, but if questions come up, and you know, we would not be violating open public meeting, etc., but just being able to communicate a little bit more freely with each other. And I know back in the day, it used to be a very simple thing. You know, a committee, you would have a roster and you know whatever. But I do understand the complications. But I know I would be happy to have my information shared, but some people may not be, you know, as willing to do that. So. So Jericho, I will just have Alexandria ask people if they would like to have what contact information they would want on a list.
I'll send the email tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm just looking, it's 5 o'clock. We missed, I know we had a hard stop for Sue, and also with Amanda. But I'm also running up to a hard stop. I've got a Little League Championship game tonight. Grandson's team is undefeated. So tonight is a championship game. So we have to get there to start rooting on for the East Cobb Barons. Very proud of their accomplishments.
We
And-
are currently sub quorum, so we don't need anything to do to close this out. We'll just need to remember to close this meeting on next month when we open.
And I guess that's about it. Happy Memorial Day. My gosh, it crept up on us awfully fast. You know?
Right.
It seemed like the winter was forever, but then once it starts, we're going to be talking about Labor Day soon. So blink of an eye. I also just want to thank Sarah. We had one of our grant recipients was at the library 2 weeks ago on the 10th in the herd. Showed us a part of a film that talks about horses and mental health, and Sarah was there, and it's a fabulous program, and it's working the way. It was a brand new program that we funded, and the idea is that once they receive funding from the town, that they have to start a sustainability program. So she's starting some fundraising, but Sarah, through her section in the Enki on films, sort of wove together a film about libraries and talked about what the importance of libraries and the program at the library. So thank you for giving that call out to In the Herd Horses for Mental Health, because, you know, like we need to publicize, these programs need to publicize also. So thank you. That was a very clever way of doing that. So
Thanks for reading. Thanks for reading, Veronica.
all righty. We have our next meeting, I believe, is the 20. I just lost the agenda. 20
June 26th at
26th.
4.
June 26th at 4 o'clock. That happens to be during the film festival, so I hope that there's no films that are going to be conflicting or whatever with that, but we'll work around it. So with no more discussion or questions, I guess the next well, we can't have an adjournment because we're sub-quota. Okay. Have a great night, everybody, and happy Memorial Day. And
Be safe.
all right.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thanks so
Bye.
much.
All right.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Go team.
Yes, thank you. All righty.